What role is he playing?
今日はどの役をするのかな。カメラに向かって言ってくれる？何の役です？ポルトガル人の役。
And what does he know about the Portuguese merchants?
ポルトガル人の人とか種子島で聞いたことがある？知ってる？Yes, I know.
He learned in school.
学校でそれは教わったポルトガルの人のお家で自然に
Television.
He had the chance to know the history between Portuguese and Tanegashima.
Do you want to go to Portugal sometime?
いつかポルトガルに行ってみたいなと思う。Yes, I'd love to.
It's the first time he's playing a Portuguese in Tanegashima Festival.
このお祭りでポルトガルの子供の役っていうのは今日が初めて。Yes, it is my first time.
You can tell him that when he goes to Portugal, I can meet him. I'll be really glad to meet him.
もしね、ポルトガルに来るときはイネスさんっておっしゃるんだけど、会おうねって待ってるよって。ポルトガルに来てね。はい。
頑張ってね。It's nothing extraordinary for a certain region or community considered to be in the periphery of power to develop their own discourse about their role in the formation of that same centrality. Tanegashima is one of those cases, a small island in the southernmost region of Japan that claims to have a pivotal role in the formation of the Japanese modern state. From here, one perceives the probably accidental arrival of the Portuguese as the event that changed national history, since it enabled the local lord Tanegashima Tokitaka to gain access to the fire weapons called teppo, which would later on be decisive in the unification of the Japanese territory. What is special about Tanegashima is the way history and stories intertwine to create multiple meanings and provide privileged information about the construction of a narrative. The different agents managing the tale of the Tanegashima gun and the particular symbolic concepts within it turn out to be the key to understand why it became the leitmotif of the seed-shaped island, not just for the islanders, but also for Japan and even for some Portuguese. One of the stories concerning the issue of the legacy of the introduction of fire weapons, the teppo dendai, is the tale of Wakasa. To some extent, it could be considered folklore, but that does not diminish at all the importance it has for his people. As any tale, there are many versions, in which the slight change in details corresponds to subtle suggestions of behavior and intent, but the main account is as follows. After Lord Tanegashima acquired the prototype of the gun, he ordered a servant to produce a replica. This man was called Kimbe and worked with iron, since Tanegashima had a large supply of it and was already a place known for its scissors and blades. Though the man disassembled the gun to unfold its secrets, he could not finish his work, since a hidden part was not known. This hidden secret varies, but the point is that it was needed for him to give his beautiful daughter in marriage to one of the Portuguese men, in order to be able to create the first Japanese-made matchlock gun. Wakasa is both a sacrifice and an example of filial piety, because she did not object the union. Though her partner left in a couple of months, she gave birth to a boy and raised him to know his father's provenance. Presumably, she ended up getting depressed, either by missing her husband or her son, since one version tells he eventually came to claim him, and was last seen in Kadokurazaki in a stormy day with high waves. As you have been seeing by the pictures, Tanegashima Tokitaka, Kimbe, and Wakasa are the main characters of the plot. They all were tied up by their sense of duty and their place in society. the feudal lord, by taking advantage of a valuable novelty in a time of war and instability, the servant who had to obey a direct order and put use his skills to a greater good or future glory of his lord, the girl who had to save her father from humiliation or worse if he failed. The Portuguese man and the gun are mere devices to trigger the actions of the Japanese, in which turns out to be a drama of quite operatic contours. In the beginning of this video, I showed you a boy being interviewed as he was preparing himself to be part of a parade. This was recorded in a large room in the community center, in which many people, children and adults, were changing clothes, getting their hair and makeup done, and taking the deep breath before the show. The occasion is the Festival of the Gun, Teppo Matsuri. This festival was created in Ishinomote in 1963 and has been going on ever since, with few interruptions, once a year. The Club for the Preservation of Matchlock Gun of Tanegashima, which was created in 1976, opens the parade with an impressive display of shooting. All the guns used are authentic specimens from 16th and 17th century that people have been taking care of and still know how to use. The display of those guns and the men of the club are so important that the image of the poster is all about them. But after the ear-blowing overture, the parade begins. Someone wearing a full-body character suit represents Tokitaka, and he is followed by a band. In a kind of boat, the young Wakasa smiles and waves, next to her Portuguese husband and some more people dressed as 16th century Portuguese merchants, as well as the presumably Chinese interpreter. Many people walk next to the boat, which has heels so it could go through the main streets of the city, including Kimbe. Some of the support cast are children, like the one in the interview.
次は鉄砲隊です。鉄砲隊には毎年南蛮行列に参加いただいております市議会議員の方に演じていただいております。今年は7名が参加されております。ありがとうございました。続いてはユミンドです。市議会議員と鹿児島相互信用金庫の職員にご参加いただきました。次は鉄砲伝来のメインキャストともいえる第14代当主種子島時隆公です。漂着船に乗っていたポルトガル人から鉄砲2丁を2000両で買い受け、刀鍛冶大火金兵衛に命じて国産第1号の火縄銃を完成させた名君の誉れ高い当主と伝わっております。時隆公は鹿児島相互信用金庫職員が演じております。時隆公の後に続きますのは笠持太刀持ちです。鹿児島銀行と市議会議員の出演です。その後に続いておりますのは加納です。市議会議員の出演です。次に登場しておりますのが西村織部之丞です。火縄銃をもたらした民戦に乗船した愛国人と砂浜で筆談をし、意思の疎通を図ったと伝えられます。当時の種子島家の
One of the first books to tell what was happening in Tanegashima and to describe the Teppo Matsuri in Portuguese was a book created actually in Macau, which was Portuguese at the time. And this book is also in English, so it's in Portuguese and in English, and it depicts the special environment of Tanegashima this way. Life in Tanegashima revolves around the gun. Local artifacts for tourist consumption sometimes carry the image of a gun associated with spaceships that are launched from the modern nearby space facilities of Nishimura. We already saw that. The namban guns is present everywhere. Tie-pins, window valances, labels on sake bottles, or even boxes of locally made biscuits. We already saw that too, so there's no much difference between the 80s and right now. Continuing quoting, traditional dolls, on the other hand, invariably represent Princess Wakasa holding a gun in her arms. We already saw Wakasa's statue in front of Araki Hotel, also holding a hand in her arms. So this book from the 80s was a breakthrough because really nothing in Portuguese existed of this festival and of the meaning it has for islanders. In my own opinion, I think this book is the way the community from Macau um, perceived itself as the open door to Japan. It has always been that way. Actually, the Portuguese that arrived in Japan in the first place in 1543 were probably people with their base, their headquarters in Macau or around it. This is also a book with beautiful pictures, and it tells us that the parade hasn't been the same all along. So it tells that in this around this time the parade also occurs in Wakasa Park, which exists still, but in the year I went there, nothing was going on in Wakasa Park. And it also highlights us about the importance of the connection between the Teppo Matsuri and the local Shinto festivities. So the temple, the Gyon temple, so the Buddhist temple in which the Portuguese were sheltered, is also a place for festivities. So you have Shinto values, and you have the religious festival alongside this kind of historical festival. I was able to interview some of the members of the organizing committee, some of the founders of the festival, actually, like this man. And what they told me was that in the beginning, so from 63 onwards, in the first few years, the costumes were provided by a theater company specialized in historical acts. So the props and everything they were wearing were more professional. With time, they stopped hiring this company, this theater company, and they start doing their own costumes. And people joining the parade changes every year, and they don't do a lot of preparation since people don't have to rehearse just to be in the parade. There are dancing parts in the parade, so that there are groups of people that will perform a special dance. I will not talk about this in this presentation. And those groups that perform dances or have to sing or do something like that, of course they need to rehearse, and they start a few months before the actual festival. But the people just volunteering to be part of the parade and be the wakasa or the Portuguese sailor or the kimbe and so on, they don't actually need to rehearse. So they just have to use the costumes, and they have to fit them. So they have to do them every year. And because the people are different, they have to do the costumes every year. This, of course, has costs, and it's all paid by the city hall. So the fact that the costumes change and new people comes to participate in the Teppo Matsuri has two main consequences. From the point of view of older people from the committee like this man, it means that you don't have people very concerned with historical accuracy, and they want to look good, and they want to look like the pictures in history books or in historical dramas or in TV and documentaries, but they are open to making changes. And he is a person from theater, and he wants to be authentic and genuine. He used those words a lot to create really authentic feeling of history, and use reliable sources in order to produce the costumes. The second consequence, which is actually the better one, is that because this happens every year, and because it's going on for so long now, and because the people is not always the same, it means that virtually every inhabitant of this city participates or have participated or will participate in the nearby future in the Teppo Matsuri. It means that a lot of people are involved in this festival, being a part of it and not just being a member of the audience. And one example is the girl I interviewed as the wakasa of that year, 2012. She told me that the previous year her older sister has been the wakasa, and she asked her to be wakasa this year. So it means that even within the family there are references of brothers and sisters, fathers and daughters and sons and so on. So people have a friend or a family member that has been part of the Teppo Matsuri, and then they told them, oh, it's good, you will enjoy it, just volunteer this year, it will be good for you. Or sometimes some people do this as a special occasion, it's their birthday, or they want to do something to change their perception of life, or they want to be integrated in the community. I also interviewed a young man that told me he had arrived in Tanegashima recently and didn't have many friends yet, and he wanted to meet people, he wanted to feel he was part of something and eventually create a relation with other people participating in the Teppo Matsuri. So people have their own objectives when they participate in this festival. And in the point of view of my research, which is why people engage with history and why they feel it's important to have a shared memory and a common knowledge, even if it is just a general knowledge of their history and so forth, their identity. This means that almost everyone is involved by the fact that this happens every year. If you enjoyed this presentation, please check my Facebook page, my YouTube channel, or contact me in order to get more information about this topic, to know more about my research, to quote me if you want to quote me, but you're only authorized to quote me if I am saying something that I said you can quote, and also about the copyright of all these pictures and images I collected in Japan during my research. So I really want to share information and educate people about this issue, which I think touches common grounds in terms of you having a local community, a particular region in the periphery of power, telling the tale of their integration in national history by a series of events, and how they live those events and how they give meaning to those events every year. So it's a cycle. They are living the episode every year they enact him. So that's why this is a parade of history, or a historical parade. The Teppo Matsuri and everything, all the context of Tanegashima is complex, but I think in this second part I could address it, or most of it. I have more presentations about other issues in Japan, about other places in Japan actually, in which the Portuguese presence was the motto for other performances or choices or heritage, because for me this is cultural heritage and I try to support that point of view. So you have all my contacts, I'm available, I would like to discuss this with you, and thank you very much for watching.